let's see what else we can plan, because right now what we did the initiation with the charter, the stakeholders, and then we went into planning. We started with requirements, we did scope, then the WBS, then the schedule. And some would think that maybe you should calculate your budget, but really before you do your budget, you need to ask yourself, the resources, because the resources will have an impact. See, if I pay more for certain resources, this is my schedule. If my resources are more expensive, my project will cost me more. Currently, based on only the entries that I put, it looks like my project will cost me $13,750, right? But what if, remember this number, okay? What if I went into the resources? This is $13,750, just keep that in mind. So if I go to resources and maybe my plan was that I would hire somebody like Jack here that would be working for me on the project for $400 a day. And what if I find out that there is no rate in the market? Maybe the least I can find is $600 per day for Jack, for somebody with experience like Jack. That means all activities that are attached to Jack are going to become more expensive. Remember, it was $13,750. But let's see what happened on our project when we go back to the Gantt chart. And now it's saying not $13,750 anymore, it's $15,875. The project became more expensive. So we'd have to look at ways to reduce cost. And you see that resources are one of the ways that you can figure out your cost. So before I go into costing my project, I should understand who will be doing what on my project. So there are two types of resources that we use. It doesn't say it here on this slide, but there are two types. There are those who directly work on activities. So maybe they're the ones unpacking and packing and things like that, or putting up the partitions. And then you have those who are doing administrative work. So they're not really assigned to a specific activity. Maybe someone is keeping track of the expenses on the project. Maybe someone is handling the communication on the project. Maybe someone is handling vendor-related documentation, signed paperwork and so on. So these don't really have, places on our schedule where we put them, but they are necessary activities. So two types here. One that is going to do activities on the project, and there's another type that does administrative project management, follow-up monitoring on the project. So the ones who do follow-ups and things, we're not going to assign them on the project just like we assigned Jack and Joe and others. They will not have direct activities here, but they will have general activities that they do on the whole project. So for those, we need to also assign responsibility even when they are not showing on the schedule. And anyway, so the project staffing plan describes when and how the human resources, the people, will be brought onto and released off the project team, and how they will be trained. So this is a staffing plan for the project. See, it includes how we're going to bring them in, how we're going to get rid of them, how we're going to return them, how will we pay them, do we need to train them, do we need to develop their skills. So there's more to planning than just figuring out who's actually going to be doing what activity. To bring them, maybe you have to interview, maybe you need to, maybe you have to interview people from an agency, screen them and so on, and then pick your best and train them, give them some devices like laptop or things to work with. So you have to think about the timing of this, and you need to develop an overall staffing. You cannot just wait until it's time to do an activity and look around and see, which resources are available. This is important because reporting relationships that exist on a project could be different than those that exist in the organization. Sometimes you take somebody from engineering department, they are very senior there, but in your project, they're acting as a temporary consultant, or they're assisting with one specific activity. You need to document which role this person is going to play on your project. You need to figure if they need any information before they can actually work on the project. So we say it is a planning activity to make sure that all the resources will be available to actually work at the time that you need them to work. So some of the things that you need to plan is how will you acquire the resources. If we were talking about a move, then we're bringing them from the outside, the movers, right? The timetable, when should you have done this? So if we're talking about the movers, by when should we have gotten them signed on for this one project? What's the release criteria? Well, since they're contractors, at the end of the move, we just let them go. We sign off the paperwork. They will be paid accordingly, according to what finance does. In case of a move, we don't need any training, but if you were bringing people to a project that is, let's say, well, I'll tell you from the IT side of things, right? If you think that IT might need resources, how will you get resources for them? By when? When do they really finish? Is it after the monitoring of 5 days is finished, or is it immediately as soon as the move is completed? Do they need to be trained? If you bring additional resources to help with wiring and so on, we may have to train them a little bit on our environment or show them, or maybe think about informing them about safety procedures, or maybe things that they need to comply with and so on. If you are planning on giving employees bonuses, then you need to be clear on what's the criteria to actually win that bonus. On most projects, resources will increase from planning through execution, and then after in planning, it's a slow, gradual build up, doesn't really build up too much. But when you go into execution, that's when everybody needs to be on the project, like on the day of the move, on the day of the move, and shortly after, you will have lots of your resources busy with all of the partitions and desks and other things that are happening with the wires, the networks, and so on. And then monitoring and controlling, once all is done, it just falls off at that point, right? That's the controlling point. When we want to plan for our resources, we can use org charts like this one on the left. We can use a responsibility assignment matrix like this, or we could use a text-oriented format. If you just wanted like hard labor to come help you with this, and there's an agency that provides you this kind of manpower, then you can just put a request to them in a text format by email saying we need 6 people to help with a move. We just need them to be strong. They need to speak, for example, English or any other language that you wish. And they need to also have a team lead that can, guide them. And that you can do with this text-oriented format. Most of the time, we are creating a project organization like this, or we're creating a responsibility assignment matrix like this. If you're wondering what the responsibility assignment matrix looks like, it may look like this, which is called a RACI chart. I want you to pay attention to this because this is an important tool. So a RACI is an example of a responsibility assignment matrix. And the word RACI, it's an acronym, and it stands for responsible, accountable, consult, and inform. In a way, some people will be responsible for doing work, but not everybody will be held accountable. So even if there are 3 people doing one task, maybe putting up the partitions, maybe only one person is accountable, that maybe is the team lead or is the one that's deciding for that team. So I could assign something to one of you or to several of you and name one of you as the accountable. That's the one person I'm going to blame or hold to account in case the work isn't done correctly. So the others that are responsible, they will participate in the work, but they're not really blamable for the outcome. They're not the ones who make blamable decisions. It's really not about blame. It's about making someone the go-to person to make the decisions, okay? So you want someone who's accountable, but typically if you want to make somebody accountable, you need to empower them a little bit, give them more abilities, maybe give them the wings that Superman wears so they can fly if they need to. No, but you really need to give them more abilities to reach certain people or to make decisions. I mean, you can't hold somebody accountable, but at the same time, don't allow them to do anything that they want. So you have to give them a little more power. They don't have to be managers, but just give them a little more capabilities so that they can make decisions for the team, because in the end, if something goes wrong, you're going to blame them. That's the aim. Every one of these activities on your project should have an aim. So a question for you, what things do we need to plan for where we might use a RACI chart? Well, it is not the activities on my project, because those activities on my project, as you can see, I have names already against them. So that's not really what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is who's keeping track of who came today and who left. That's not something I'm going to put as an activity in my project. It has no duration, something that we need to do all the time. So I will pick one person and say, I want you to take note of who came in and who left, how long they went on break. So someone who keeps track of employees. Maybe I want someone to keep track of expenses. Otherwise, we're going to be lost, right? So I need someone to keep track of to prepare reports on a periodic basis and send them to me. Those are not things we put on the project, right? These are activities related to the project, but not project activities. These are administrative or oversight type activities. And so these might be things that I would include here. Here is just examples, so don't try to read them so hard. But I can put these roles here, and I will make somebody accountable for each. There's got to be at least one person accountable for every one of the tasks that I'm giving these people. And likewise, you can have somebody who's the key engineer that, everybody can go to that one person if they have technical questions. Maybe someone will be accountable for safety procedures, another one accountable for supplies, they will make sure that we're not wasting them or something. And maybe somebody is accountable to manage the contractor to make sure that they're behaving or not doing something wrong. So you need accountable people for these things, but you also will have other people who will assist. These are responsible people. And the C, consult, is the people you will check with regards to anything. So if I want to know something about what's the best way, what's the safest way to be moving the boxes, then I will consult with someone with regards to these boxes. So the consult are the people you check with. They're either approvers, reviewers, but they are the people who you check with regards to anything. I, which stands for inform, these are the people that need to be copied on, discussions or emails or things like that. They would want to know about it. So sometimes the senior management, there are certain people who want to be copied on emails, even if they're not going to be responding themselves, but they want to be copied. So who are the people that need to be informed? Incidentally, by the way, you could use this to identify stakeholders also. You could see who need, if you're trying to figure out who's the accountable person, that person immediately is a stakeholder in your project. For people who are going to be on this RACI chart, on the responsibility matrix, or on the project doing things for you, usually they're going to have titles. Right? They're going to have roles and responsibilities. So they'll have a title, like for example, chief engineer on the project or chief project engineer. What is their responsibility? What are the things they're supposed to do? What kind of authority do they have? What skill set are they going to need? And so authority and so I have responsibility and I have accountability. Accountable, what things would I hold them accountable for or blame them for? What are the things that they do? They may do several things and only be accountable for only on one, but the rest they're just being responsible, they're participating. And these are the skill sets they need. As I mentioned down here, to make somebody accountable, you need to give them a little bit of authority so that they can act, all right, on the things that you are going to blame them for. So these are roles and responsibilities. That's all I'm going to tell you about staffing, planning. In most instances, you will find that the people are assigned on your project not by your choice. They just give you these people and they tell you you're responsible to get results out of them. Now, if we know the resources, it's easier to actually calculate our budget